Fair differ from other World's Fairs?
It's bigger. There's more to see, and more ground to cover. Better exhibits, more of them. It's on a huge scale. Measured by acreage, numbers of exhibits, by any other norm or measure, it's on a much bigger scale.
There is the symbol of the fair, the great Unisphere.
This fair represents the most promising of our hopes. It gathers together from 80 countries the achievements of industry, the health of nations, the creations of man. This fair shows us what man at his most creative and constructive is capable of doing.
Everyone is coming to the New York World's Fair. They're coming from the 4 corners of the earth and from 5 Corners, Idaho. They come down from New Athens, Maine, and from Athens, Greece, and from Tokyo, and Kokomo, and Rome, down from Frisco, and down from Troy, from Hamburg, from Nineveh, from Aurora, Illinois.
They also came from the local police precinct. No longer was it possible for a World's Fair to wall out the wider world.
We're going to the Unisphere, where we've set up headquarters, and from there we will go to certain pavilions.
What pavilions? What are you planning?
James Farmer of the Congress of Racial Equality.
Yes, sir. There we will be picketing in protest against the continuation of segregation in Louisiana, and to show the glaring contrast between the glitter fantasy world being shown at the World's Fair and the real world of brutality and poverty and hatred and vengeance which Negroes face in Louisiana.
Certainly there were gathering storms over civil rights and the war in Southeast Asia. Nonetheless, this fair attracted every imaginable commercial exhibit. Once again, GM built an elaborate Futurama. This one, however, steered clear of foretelling any exact date. Instead, undersea, outer space, and tundra villages were envisioned for some vague, far-off future time. Among the most lavish and successful exhibits, the IBM Pavilion. Computers were just beginning to dawn on the public consciousness and were regarded by some as remote and threatening. IBM set out to accustom the uninitiated to yet another new idea.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the IBM Information Machine.
The railroad scene is familiar, even nostalgic, but it is large and very complex.
The machine brings you information in much the same way as your mind gets it, in fragments and glimpses, sometimes relating to the same idea or incident.
Apples become barrels. Barrels become boxcars. Boxcars become waybills. Waybills become train lists, and so on and so on. Each abstraction a little farther from the reality we know, a little easier to handle. To the simplest of the abstractions, the ones and zeros. These can be handled at great speed, and soon the selected information finds its way back into a familiar reality.
We solve our ordinary problems in much the same way as we solve our most complicated ones. The programming of computers to handle data and build revealing relationships is just a fine elaboration of the familiar methods we all know and use every day.
On the cultural side, too, the New York World's Fair was a major production, offering a dizzying array of cultural come-ons. The notion that less is more held no appeal for Robert Moses. To him, more was more, and his fair showed it. Still, there were a few diamonds among the rough, including Michelangelo's Pieta, brought all the way from Rome. Critics complained about expense, about crowding and commercialism. But certainly by 1964, extravagance may have seemed the only way a fair could compete with other entertainments for your money and attention.
Some places make you happy just to be in them.
World's fairs, as a rule, are ephemeral. Will there be anything lasting at this one?
Oh, yes, indeed. In the first place, we'll have several new buildings, but over and above that, we're going to finish Flushing Meadow Park with the receipts of the fair. And when I say that, I think it'll be the finest park in the city of New York. It's right at the geographical and population center, and I think it will cost about $10 million to finish the park. The landscaping will be here, the trees will still be here. About half the utilities have been put in on a permanent basis, so they'll stay. And this will be a great park, the park.
For all Moses' certainty, it was just not to be. This is the park today. The New York World's Fair finished its two-season run, $21 million in the red. The fair had been built on the same ground as the '39 fair, built, too, on the same ambition of leaving a noble legacy. What remains hardly gladdens the heart.